Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the Clone Zone, episode 12. Today, we're joined by Josh Chapman from Star Wars Spelt Out. Welcome to the show, Josh. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, guys. Thank you for having me. Lovely to be here in this beautiful Melbourne morning, 8 a.m. It's day 10 of our fifth lockdown as well.
Wow.
So we're in our fifth lockdown for 5 days. And if you're not going anywhere and you get the call to come talk Star Wars, it's just like the best antidote there is, really. So thank you so much for having me. It's good to see you guys again.
Yeah.
Just to hang out. Like,
Guys,
we're just talking before we came on, going, it's just good to hang out. Talk to people.
It's been like 2 years, right?
Yes, it's celebration. Well, I had Molly on. Molly's been on the podcast, but even that was over a year ago, I think.
Yeah.
That was a while.
And we're like, yeah, of course, we'll catch up. We'll do this, we'll do that. And then stuff happens and you just end up, not drifting apart, but having other stuff to do. So it's always nice the Bad Batch can bring us together, because it's all about, like, bringing people together and looking after your family and stuff. Not that we're family, but we're Star Wars family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you're having a good morning. We're having a good evening over here. So
I'm definitely not doing what you're doing. I just had cereal and orange juice 2 seconds, about 2 minutes before I came on.
I'll give it 12 hours.
Yeah.
But if you've never seen the show before, we're going to discuss today's episode, Rescue on Ryloth, amongst ourselves for 20 or 30 minutes, and then we'll dive into chat and take some questions. If you want to get a question into the queue, just pop a super chat up and we'll run through those first. But yeah, let's just dive in. Josh, how have you been enjoying The Bad Batch as a series?
I've been enjoying it more than I expected. Not that I expected it to be bad or any batch or anything like that. Like, I liked Clone Wars, I liked Rebels, all that kind of stuff, and I always happily watched them and things. But I really got intrigued by the whole idea of what happens to these troopers when everything flips, when the Empire kind of takes over. Like, what happens to them? Do they all get sent to the meat grinder? Do they all just blindly go on with what's going on? How do you flip from a republic, like at the end of a war, and then, sort of start taking over, basically? So the thing that's really intrigued me is just how quickly the Empire just start kicking heads and breaking skulls and throwing their weight around. Like, I really thought it would be like a really slow kind of, I mean, that doesn't make for great TV, I suppose, but I thought it would be a lot more of a slower process. So I've really enjoyed it. Like, I've liked they've fleshed out the Bad Batch a lot more, and then like Omega, it's kind of funny because Omega's got a very thick New Zealand accent, and if you know anything about Australians, New Zealand's kind of like our Shelbyville. It's sort of like our rival town across the way. So we always have this sort of strange relationship with New Zealanders, because there's lots of New Zealanders in Australia and you hear the accent and things. But it's cool. Like, how great is Omega? And it's just weird that the longer this goes on, the more, especially in this episode, the more sort of embedded she's getting in the story and the lore and meeting characters and stuff. You're kind of going, you just want to know more about where she ends up and what happens to her. You're kind of going, where does she fit in the bigger picture? So I do like that it's telling this really little story about a group of sort of ragtag soldiers who are learning to be dads and take care of something other than themselves, but also like this bigger picture of like, this is what happens to a galaxy, when it turns and the big wheels turning and stuff like that. So in all, yeah, good. I think it's good.
That seems to be the general consensus is like, I'm liking it a lot more than I thought that I would. And I'm one of those as well, where I was surprised when they announced this as the next series, but I have just fallen in love with the whole crew. So much so that I was kind of like, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it was really clever how they did it, that this was the show, because they brought Clone Wars back and they spent all this money making Clone Wars look amazing. So they would have remodeled everything, upgraded the computers, done all this stuff, and then dropped these fellas in here, this Bad Batch, and went, all right, well, we can run with the series now because we've invested all this money in our animation now. We've established the characters and we can just run with it. So it was actually absolute genius when you look back at it. Like, I'm sure there's some smart people at Lucasfilm, but the way that they sort of subtly dropped it in and then just utilized off the back of that new Clone Wars stuff was great.
Yeah, and I've fallen in love with the main cast, like you said, Omega, but also the other members of the batch. So much so that I was kind of not down on last week's episode. I was just like, I missed them. And the fact that they were only in one scene, I was kind of bummed about that. But like, I have totally changed my tune about last week's episode thanks to this week's episode, because I freaking love this week's episode. It might be my favorite one of the bunch. It had everything. It had like great character stuff, lots of action, good action, and like a lot to say. So many fun developments. So I loved Rescue on Ryloth. Molly, what did you think of it?
I really loved it too. I feel like last week's episode really paid off today. Just all that setup, all the story setup for Ryloth and the Syndulas. I was kind of in the same boat last week. I was like, I don't know if I liked that episode. It was cool to see Hera and Chopper and get that story set up, but I was definitely left wanting more. But this episode gave it to me, and I loved everything between Omega and Hera. This was a very Omega-centric episode, and I love her so much.
She's starting to sort of push back more, isn't she? That she's sort of, before she's sort of almost not I've got kids, like not nagging or just sort of using their kid way to get what they want, but she was actually more just like, hey, like, we got to do this. If I'm part of this team, I get as much of a say as everybody else. So this is what I want to do, and we've got to do it. So it was quite interesting. That was a bit of a subtle character sort of development for her, I think, where she sort of stood up for herself a little bit more and kind of dictated terms a bit. But it was good, wasn't it? Like, second payoff. Like, I mean, I know they weren't doing like "Hey, to be continued" last week, but I was the same. At the end of it, I went, "Oh, well, it was cool that we did that," but like, it seems a bit weird. But then all of a sudden, it was like, "Oh, it's paying off. We're going straight back." Even when I saw the little description, the episode name, like, oh, we're literally going right back.
Yeah, and I don't think I would have liked this episode as much as I did without the last episode. So like, I take back everything I said last week about just like, oh, I missed the batch. Like, we needed all this stuff with the people on Ryloth. But I love what you said about Omega and her starting to push back. And I smiled so big for her when she realized, like, I'm going to get to do a mission on my own. Like, me and Hera, you're just trusting us with this? Because I've been so, like, Hunter keeps sidelining her. And then at the end of the Raxus episode, he was basically like, I won't do that anymore. And he followed up on it, like, sent her in to do something dangerous on her own. And I just loved seeing her get to do that.
Well, I loved that. Sorry.
I was just going to say, to be fair, Omega's like 12. I wouldn't be sitting with my 12-year-old into battle. So Hunter's got the right instincts, but
I think she's ready, Josh. You send your 12-year-old into battle.
Well, she's only 6. She's only 6, but when she is 12, I won't be sitting into battle either.
Okay. Yeah. 6 more years, and then she's ready.
Yeah.
I really liked that. Was it 2 episodes ago when they left Omega behind, and she did her whole like chess thing, or not hollow chess thing. Hunter kind of uses the whole being a good soldier thing as a reason for her to, follow his order to stay behind. And so she's like, okay, yeah, that's fair. And she kind of flips that on him in this episode about what a good soldier should do, as in like, we should help Hera and her family. And he kind of is like, oh yeah, you got me there.
You snookered me. You used my logic against me.
She did that twice. Like there were 2 times where it's just like a close up of Hunter being like, "Oh crap, she got me." It reminded. I was telling Molly about this. I don't know if you watch Parks and Rec, Josh, but there's a scene where Leslie like has the Girl Scouts, and she's trained them so well that they use like her own lessons against her, and she's like, I'm proud, also annoyed. Like that's the kind of vibe I got from Hunter.
Yeah, or Liz Lemon when she learns how to negotiate Jack Donaghy by reading his own book against him, and then they just got this stalemate of like each other's negotiation tactics and things. Yeah, look, it's very typical kid behavior as well, of just that kind of like, I will find the logic. Before didn't mean anything, because like at the moment, my kids, you can just say, just do it because I say I do it. Like you cannot question my authority. But basically, when kids get to that sort of early, I suppose Omega's a tween. We established she's a tween. She's probably 11 or 12. That they start thinking independently and stuff. Let's face it, Omega is smarter than all those guys probably put together. Even Tech probably. Really, even though she's been living in some sort of facility her whole life.
Yeah, she's technically probably older than them, right?
Yeah, I think so, probably.
With the whole aging process.
What's the official age? Is it 3 times that they go? 4 times? How fast do they actually go?
Just double.
Just double.
Oh, it's
So
just
they're
double.
probably, they're like at most 13 years old. I believe the order was put in 10 years before Attack of the Clones. And Omega, I think, was like a first generation. We don't know when exactly the Bad Batch was created, but I'm going to guess it was after Omega.
Yeah.
So I think she is technically
She's technically older. It's quite funny, isn't it? You're kind of doing that mental maths in your head. Kind of going, oh, okay. Yeah.
I was kind of hoping
Rex,
that she would. Oh, good. Yeah, Rex was
just
be
thinking about
13.
Yeah. So he's the first gen, wasn't it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I was kind of hoping that she would have. I was kind of hoping she would have the accelerated aging just to see her grow up throughout the show. But I'm
so she's
I'm
almost
fine
like
that
Baby Groot, where all of a sudden
Yeah.
she's just like on the thing, with her Game Boy, showing some attitude. And well, this is the thing. Like, we don't know. Like, I'll just say, the more she gets embedded in this story, in this lore, like the more I want to know about where she ends up and like, what her story is and how she relates to Boba Fett and all this kind of stuff. It does open up a bunch of possibilities and things. And I just, hope they don't take they don't really seem to do that. Of like, we get to a point where we've got to answer questions rather than just having her disappear. We'll just find a way to explain it later on when we need to, basically, So, I was just over here, or that's why I was over here and stuff. But, she's getting up there as in popularity of a character and, the popularity of a New Zealander, right? Who's the most famous New Zealander you guys can think of? Russell Crowe, Fly the Conchords.
Waititi?
She's Taika Waititi. She's getting up there. Neil Finn. Like, it's a character that's going to endure, I think, and it'll be curious to see what they end up doing with her.
Speaking of popular characters, I feel like we should talk about Hauser, because he has taken the Star Wars fandom by storm. And now, last week I was like, he's pretty cool. This week I'm like, I'm on board. Give me that Black Series figure. Like,
how does somebody who looks exactly like everyone else be more handsome than everybody else? I don't understand how he's managed to do that.
He's got like
Molly,
slightly cooler hair. I don't know. Like he looks like he wakes up in the morning and is like, all right,
Just
got
like
my hair gel.
Yeah.
There's got to be something in the helmet that just keeps it perfect all the time. Little styling robot or something. But
he's like, hey, a lot goes on that you guys don't see. Like there's a lot that this doesn't just happen naturally. There's a lot of work that gets put into it.
Exactly.
That's why he doesn't wear his helmet that often in the show. He's like, I can't mess all this up.
Yeah. Why would I hide this?
Yeah. He's using whatever Timothy Oliphant uses in his hair. That's what he's using.
Exactly.
Oh yeah. Maybe Hauser gets away eventually, and he starts his own sort of cosmetics for men line. And that's where Cobb Vanth shops. He gets like a mail order thing sent everywhere. He's like, oh, it's the Hauser collection. Good, I can keep my skin beautiful in this Tatooine sun. He's a curious case. Yeah. He's a curious case, isn't he? Because I just assumed that all the clones like went like this, and then they're all just a bunch of jerks. And he's sort of flying under the radar. So whether he's just keeping it on the down low till he can't take it anymore, where he just, for whatever reason, he didn't go over, or the chips are starting to wear off. I don't know. Like, it's quite a curious thing of going like, hey, because he kind of goes, he pleads to his troops like, we don't need to do this, and a couple of them go, oh, you're right, we don't need to do this. This is wrong. Whether this is the impetus where the Empire go, we're kind of losing control of these guys. We've got to send them off, like I said, to the meat grinder, or send them on some mission, or, we thought we'd had a few years of compliance here, and we're not actually going to have that.
Real quick, I did the hairnet from Scrubs. Yes, very good callback. That's what Hauser has. But I think you're correct. I think that the fact that Hauser walked out and was able to just talk and convince other troops to put their weapons down. Not all of them, but some of them. Like, that's enough for the Empire to be like,
damn, that handsome guy's got a point. He's so handsome. We better listen to him. Maybe if we listen to him, he'll tell us his secrets of how to be so handsome.
So, yeah, I think that the Empire is going to see that their chips are not foolproof, and they need to solve them. It's just another reason for them to go into stormtroopers and volunteers and conscripted troops, which in two. Yeah, there you go. He didn't hear his comms. He was just like posing on a mountain
hair gel in
somewhere.
his ears. Yeah.
So the episode 14 is called War Mantle, which is the code name for phasing out clones in place of stormtroopers. So
Right.
I think that what he did is probably going to start rippling out.
Because it's not that much time since, like, I always get fuzzy on how much time takes place, but it couldn't be more than 6 months since Order 66, is it, roughly? Like, it's pretty close to it kicking off, really, isn't it?
I would think so. Like, everything's happening so quickly, and they keep showing us all these planets and how the Empire is kind of like coming in and taking over. And some people are okay with it and some people aren't. But yeah, it's all happening very quickly, and there's not really a clear amount of time that's gone by, but I don't think it's that long.
It's even just enough people.
Yeah.
Like even the Empire is an interesting thing as well, because it's like, it was a functioning republic, and they just all fought a war together. And I know that, like, at the very top, obviously Palpatine's at the top. He's got a couple of lackeys and things, but there seem to be enough just general people in the population are kind of like, yeah, I wouldn't mind cracking some heads as well, and kind of throwing our weight around. So Palpatine's pretty slick. He probably installed all these lackeys in the right places at the right times, knowing that there was going to be some sort of takeover as well. But it's just quite interesting that sort of top level of command are all sort of, you think that would take years of propaganda and indoctrination as well to get everybody just in the system. But the system kind of kicked in pretty well. Shouldn't underestimate old Palpatine, I suppose.
I think that's a great point. And I'd really love to see. So we've seen Raxus, a separatist planet. We've seen now Ryloth, not a separatist planet, but not like a full-on Republic planet. Definitely not an Imperial planet. I'd really love if we got an episode on Vardos or some place that we know was like all in on the Empire, just to get another perspective, because that's another thing that this episode did. Was I was like, it made last week's episode better for me, and it made the Raxus episode better, which I liked the Raxus episode a lot already, but the idea that we're seeing that they're treating a Republic world the same as a Separatist world. They don't care.
Yeah.
We know from season 7 too that, like, there's people out there that don't like the Jedi, and once they heard about, like, what all happened, they might be like, yeah, sure, sign me up. Like, this all this order business, the Empire probably sounded like a good idea to a lot of people.
I mean, they even kind of tricked Cham. I think a lot of Cham was just denial, and they talk about that in this episode, that it's like he just didn't want Hera to have the life that he had to go through. Yeah. But, like, he was willing to give the Empire a shot. So
he's been fighting for so long. He's like, hey, look, I can just keep doing the same thing over, and if there's a chance of doing something slightly different, then it's quite an interesting metaphor for sort of, I don't want to get too deep in the way the world is, but if you have a sort of, for whatever reason you're not doing great, and someone comes along and says, hey, I can make it better for you, don't ask too many questions, but I'll just make it better for you because, hey, it's got to be better than what you got. A lot of people just go with it because they're like, well, what's my alternative is exactly what I've got, or this hypothetical thing that can be better than you, whether it's Brexit or something else. People kind of tend to go along with these things, and then you're like, it's actually worse or not as good as I imagined it, but too late now, so we're already in. So it's, Star Wars has always been political. Sorry, everybody. But no, it's really interesting. It's that bigger story. Like, that's that cool, big, little story going at the same time. And I know we're sort of jumping off slightly, but when Omega was like, they're my brothers, like the first time she sort of said out loud and sort of like, she spoke to them that same way that the soldiers do. They always, a clone was always like, oh, my brothers, I've got to look after my brothers. And she started, whether she did it as I'm one of the soldiers, I think she did it more of like, I'm in a family now. Mm-hmm. That was sort of the impression I got.
I
a family
took
of
note
which,
that line too.
Sorry, a family of which even Gonki is a part of because he's defective.
Thank you for bringing that up. I forgot about Gonki until I included him in the review. But yeah, that line about him being defective as well, I was like, that's the best.
It's adorable.
Yeah,
She was like,
like a little-
"Oh, but don't worry, we're defective too."
Maybe the Kaminoans were gonna throw him out or something, and the Bad Batch was like, "Not on my watch," and they just took him. I love that idea.
You need something to do your reps on anyway. So
yeah.
if nothing else, yeah, it's sort of like a badge of honor, isn't it? That their defectiveness, and Omega as well. You know, she's probably spent her whole life wondering who she is and why she's different, and seeing millions of the same yet different faces. You know, she's in that cloning thing, seeing like millions of clones go through, where they're all kind of like her, but they're not her. So she's sort of got this weird thing where she's kind of sees where she comes from, but doesn't feel like she belongs. So yeah.
I mean, that's
deep show.
I always loved that in the first episode where she saw the Bad Batch from afar, recognized them, chased them down, demanded to have lunch with them, just like forced them to fall in love with her. And then it's still just that like we were talking about, she's just fighting to be part of something. She wants to be part of the crew. And I do feel like she finally fully reached it today.
I'm gonna do that with the cast of The Mandalorian at Celebration.
just sit down and eat with them.
This guy just puts his lunch tray down, and you're just standing there going, "Hi, how's
Hi.
it going? Hi,
Remember me? I chased you down in the hallway earlier."
Yeah.
We'll have to
Yeah,
see
I
if
remember
that
you.
strategy works.
I don't get that close to people like that at Celebration, guys. But anyway, oh look, I thought the action was top notch as well. I did like the sort of the plan. You know, was improved on Wrecker's plan to just blow stuff off, but it was like, oh no, we are just going to blow stuff off. We're just going to blow stuff up like over there, and it was just amazing. Some of the animation is just. I went back and watched some Clone Wars stuff the other day for some reason, and perfectly great for the mid 2000s. Be like, man, we've come a long way. We've come such a long way.
Even now, I think it was one of the Jurassic World animated shows that's out right now. I just remember seeing a clip from it that I was like, golly, the Bad Batch looks even better than I thought. It's like just ahead of its time. I'm not saying like the Jurassic World show looked like garbage or anything, but it was just it was different, and I'm just impressed with what they're doing with this show. It's constantly beautiful.
Most of the animation I see at my house is either Bluey or Peppa Pig, so we're not exactly like kind of quite at the not spending the same amount of animation there on the Bad Batch. But yeah, it's great. Like it's just the foundation. Like it'll never get worse. It's only going to get better now too. So it's just really impressive. And how many episodes are there to go now?
I think 4.
So it's getting to the pointy end, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. I mean, you can feel it, especially in the last like scene of this episode with Crosshair being like permission to hunt them down, which I thought he already had that permission, but I guess the Empire was like, who cares about them?
Who cares if they just leave us alone?
Yeah, Rampart did kind of have a line about that before. So
I think
that.
Oh, sorry, I was going to say back to Hauser. I thought he was gonna.
Oh, for sure.
I was actually surprised that he didn't. Like, I just sort of thought that he was just going to get completely topped off then. So they actually showed a little bit of restraint. Whether you don't want to. I mean, I'm great that they kept the character going, but I was just from the narrative. I'm like, oh no, that face. It's just gonna get a.
For a second, I thought maybe Crosshair was like. Maybe he didn't immediately kill him because he was interested in what he was saying and doing as far as like changing the other clones' minds, whether or not it was like him and his chip kind of like wavering a little bit, or if he was like on the more bad guy side, if he was like, oh no, like clones can snap out of this, like let me do something about that. It could be a good thing or a very bad thing.
I mean, maybe he hasn't had a mental maintenance in a while. They may have not adjusted his chip, so maybe he was listening to reason.
Maybe. I mean, is anybody thinking of a flip, of a Crosshair flip, or is it too hard to redeem? I mean, it's Star Wars talking about what's worthy of redemption in Star Wars, but is it could it happen, or noble sacrifice, or I don't know, like
it feels when they found out that the rest of the Bad Batch, when they found out Crosshair was there, none of them were like, oh, like, let's try to capture him.
Get him back.
Yeah, they were like, oh no, like, I don't know if he's going to get redeemed or not at this point.
Well, we're about
It seemed
to
like he was
dive into
kind of a
super
jerk
chats,
anyway.
and this one is just perfect for what we're talking about now. So I'll just go ahead and say thank you, Charlie L. We have
one.
not. We're just now starting to address this. Do we think Crosshair will eventually get his chip removed and rejoin the Bad Batch crew? I'm still firmly in the Crosshair can be redeemed camp. Will he?
Can
I
be.
don't know, but he's
I
done
think if he
bad
does
things.
Yeah, if he
But
does it,
not
he'll
as
have to-
bad
it'll
as
be a-
Vader.
Yeah, if he does it, it'll have to be a free will. Like I don't think they'll hold him down, pull the chip out, and he wakes up and is like, "Oh my god, I made a huge mistake." It'll have to be a thing where he consciously like pushes through the programming, and you know the love for his brothers or whatever it is. If it happens, it has to be a conscious thing that he does himself. It can't just be like, "Oh, we just held him down, pulled the chip out, and everything's cool." Like it's sort of like, well, that's not very interesting. Like it was cool better for Wrecker because Wrecker. Wrecker actually fought it. Like I think it's got a.
Well, I think
This made me
Crosshair
think of
didn't have a chance to fight it, but
old Loki. This just made me think of the way that old Loki went out. It'd be cool if if Crosshair did get his chip out, and like on top of doing a bunch of terrible things, maybe he sacrifices himself in the end to save the rest of the Bad Batch or Omega or something.
He's quite hardcore, Crosshair. He might just get his knife and like a kid's cartoon.
I mean,
like, oh,
I would like that kind of, off screen.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm tired of like the redemption and then immediate death that Star Wars always seems to do. So like, I think that we've seen Wrecker say like, I fought as hard as I could and I can do it. The strongest one among them, not mentally, but the strongest one physically, could not fight the chip. So
he's also the most lovable. So everyone was working really hard to save him.
and there's always been the thing.
Whatever.
Yeah, Crosshair's kind of a jerk. He
Crosshair.
always was. So there's always the chance that they take his chip out and he still stays with the Empire. Like I can see it going any which way.
Which would be gut-wrenching, but
yeah, that'd be terrible.
It would actually be a cool moment. Like it would defy expectation where they capture him, they get him out, and he still just is a jerk and betrays them anyway. And then gets his comeuppance, and we'll all be like, yeah, have that building fall on your Crosshair or whatever it's going to be.
I could see him not being able to live with what he did or deal with it, and just be like, I can't go back, even if my chip is out. Just thinking that he has to stay.
I'd like to go back and rewatch those. I haven't rewatched those Clone Wars episodes with the Bad Batch just to get a feel for what he's like, because he flips so quickly in the Bad Batch. Just go back and watch and go like, does he seem to enjoy being a jerk? In those episodes.
He's definitely the
like,
Raphael of the group.
Oh no, Raph's my favorite.
Yeah, but he's surly.
Yeah, he is surly. Yeah, classic 1990s movie Raph is my favorite.
I agree with. He's a jerk, but he does love his brothers.
Yeah, we still don't know like what's going on in his head this whole time. Like last time we really saw him have a moment to himself was a while ago at the end of one of the episodes where
episode 3, I think.
Yeah, he goes into their quarters where the Bad Batch used to stay, and he kind of glances at the ticks on the wall, and he just kind of like sits there, and like you can tell just like internal screaming is happening, and he's just like sitting there.
He probably feels a bit abandoned, that he went one way and he actually feels like he followed the orders and stuck with the program, and the other guys just went out on him and left him. We're quite happy just to discard him. So I think it's definitely a personal thing as well.
Hunter has not really. There was a moment in today's episode where Hunter like looks at Hauser as Hauser is about to be like, I'm not going to leave my men. I know they're still good. I'm going out there. And there's like a deliberate shot of Hunter looking back at him. And I'm kind of wondering if that's Hunter going like, well, I left my brother, and maybe he will decide to fix that in the next 4 episodes.
Or he's just looking at his hair going, damn, that hair, man.
It's like, I'm going to miss that hair.
My hair's pretty good. Like I could lose the headband and I could slick it all back and I could.
What kind of product do you use?
Yeah. Don't die just yet.
All right, let's dive into some chat questions. First one is not a question from Matthew Mole, 3 Men and a Baby Yoda podcast.
Hey, Matthew. How's it going, man? I've been on that podcast. Good guys. Good guys.
Sending some Aussie love for Josh, Molly, and Alex. Thanks so much, Matthew.
Thank you.
Hey, mate. I think Matt's going to be on my podcast in the next couple of weeks. There's a bit of sizzle. So, yeah,
Nice.
Good dude. Good podcast. Have a listen. Just a couple of Sydney boys talking Star Wars.
Nice. I will check them out. Dr. Holocron, thanks for the question. Do you think Hauser will join up with Rex and help him find other defecting clones like Wolf and Gregor? I would love for Hauser to make it out of wherever he is right now.
He's got to get out alive yet first. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I don't think he's gonna join up with Rex, but I hope he survives, one, and if he does survive, then he might go off on his own mission of helping clones.
I think he could team up with Rex potentially.
I mean, he seems very loyal to the Syndulla family, so he might just stick with them. But
That's true.
He also seems very loyal to his squad. So
I just want to know more about, as I touched on before, how what's happening in his head. Was he never along with it? Has he just been biding his time, or whether something's clicked? But I mean, they've obviously spared him for a reason as well. You know, like I said, thematically, it made sense for Crosshair to hit one in between the eyes and him die and be a noble death and things. But the character, you know, has got some legs, so there's plans for him definitely. Whether it's this or if there's a second season, he'll come back, and hopefully he does.
Yeah, I don't think we've seen the last of him. I desperately hope not, because everyone fell in love with him immediately.
Get that Black Series.
Yeah, which is called Ballast, I think. I guess they changed his name recently because the toys that involve him have him named Ballast. So
is that like his? Does he have a first name, maybe, or a nickname?
Maybe that'll be it. Ballast Hauser is his full name. We'll just go with that.
Ballast Hauser for men. Yeah.
But I do still really hope that at some point in this series we find out what happened with clones like Wolf and Gregor, and that's something I've wanted since the series was announced, and so I'm kind of like seeing things where that might not be where things are headed. But when I see Hunter look back at Hauser, I'm like, okay, maybe he's going to start trying to help out other clones. Ballast Hauser is Doogie Hauser's father. I like that.
That's fun. Jane Dalton has the next super chat. Thank you, Jane. Where do you think all the traitor clones go? Are they just going to be put in prison where they are, or are they maybe all going to get sent to Camino for tests?
I don't think anything's good anything good will happen to them.
I was thinking that, like, when Rampart was talking to Hauser in this episode, he was kind of like pushing him a little bit, but I was expecting Rampart to be like really suspicious of how he was acting and be like, do you need to go have a checkup maybe?
Right.
Yeah, I think they'll basically, until they know for sure they can't control them. So it's sort of like, if this, if we do a little tweak and we push a few buttons and you're all compliant again, then all cool. But I mean, if a chip in the head can tell you to shoot Jedis in the face, the chip in the head could probably and I'm like, well, you know what I mean? Like, if they just go, hey, this ain't working, push the big red button, and they just, it's the Suicide Squad bomb in the brain or something. You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to go to the trouble of putting something in, I feel like that's very possible that could happen. But again, they don't have a bunch of I know they're phasing in stormtroopers. You can't just do it all at once, but maybe you just work your way through the non-compliance to start with, and then whether it turns out that maybe the older batches are less compliant because they're older, or whether it's it's some sort of thing around that you can sort of phase them out, or whether it's sort of a big event, where they all sort of drop. But I just feel bad. The end of the Clone Wars when it came back was very sad of what happened to all those clones as well. It feels like they just get the short end of the stick all the time. So,
I think it's a question that I guess needs answering, or it doesn't need answering, but it's just, why don't we see clones around during the original trilogy? I think there's probably a reason. I'm hopeful for now that they're maybe going to go back to Camino, and maybe they'll just do what they did to Crosshair and be like, let's mess with these chips a little bit and try to amp them up. But
we always assumed that the chips in the head meant, every time we met a clone, like in Rebels and things, and it was like, oh, we got the chips out of our head, and that's why we're cool. But we never really considered going, oh, we got the chips out of our head, that's why we're alive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry to bring the party down, everybody.
Yeah, that's really grim, Josh.
Oh dear.
It's not wrong, but
yeah.
Brett Baumler, thanks for the question. Glad they didn't kill Eleni in these episodes. They should develop her character more so her eventual death hits harder. Maybe a recurring character. Full on agree. I was expecting her. Last week I was like, well, she's dead next episode. And then I was just so invested in this episode. We got to the final scene and I was like, oh, she made it. And I was just like so thrilled and relieved that we got her and Hauser. So I love her. Not to mention she's like a badass line machine. Like I've seen how you treat your allies, Admiral. I'd prefer to be your enemy. I'm like, oh yeah.
But I do feel like I loved that line, but I feel like it really pissed off Rampart, and I feel like that might be leading to him having her killed maybe in the next episode.
Well, they gotta find her first.
Yeah. I don't want that to happen, but just knowing that she dies eventually, I'm fully expecting to see it as long as she's still in the show.
Mm-hmm. Things don't end well for mums in Star Wars, really, in general. No. they get a bad rap. She's a cool. It's a shame, isn't it? Because you kind of just see, you go, oh, she's so cool, and then like, I know it's sort of formative, obviously, to Hera's character and stuff as well. But it could be, not till Hera's she's a teenager or she's 20. It doesn't matter. It's still character forming to Hera. It doesn't necessarily have to happen now. Do you think we're done with Ryloth now? Like, are we going off? Like, have we
for the
done
season?
This? For the season, yeah.
I'm assuming there's going to be a season 2, and that we'll come back around to it. But for now, I think we're going to do 4 more episodes that won't have anything to do with Ryloth.
I think it's the setup. The sort of the crosshair hunting setup is the sort of where we're coming into the 4-part finale. I think it's all going to ramp up.
Mm-hmm. True. Aimless Dreamer coming in with a generous super chat. Thank you so much. Hey y'all, what do you think this episode means for a possible season 2 and Crosshair? The theme of this episode seemed very intentional, and I think the fact that Crosshair is a part of it seems poignant.
What a perfect segue.
Yeah. I do hope there's a season 2.
I think there is. I've been kind of just like looking around like, why haven't they announced it for a while? But then Loki ends and they didn't announce season 2 until the post-credit scene. And I'm like, okay, that's just how Disney Plus is handling things. So I'm kind of now hoping that season 1 will end and we'll get that announcement shortly after or same day.
It also leaves the fate of a lot of characters up in the air as well, too. If you basically don't announce that there's a season 2 about something, and it does sort of mean that, if Omega's in a lot of trouble, in the finale, there's no, you don't know what's going to happen. Is this the end? But, even though the workings of how you think businesses and Lucasfilm works what's going to be a season 2? Kids don't know that, people don't know that, and the tension's still there. But they're on a good thing. I think they've hit a really good niche thing, and I don't think you can wrap up the story of like this big story in 4 episodes. Like, I think there's more to say about this transition of power and how it affects all the sort of the players in it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of hopeful that season 1 ends with like we're going full on transition to Empire stuff, and we get no more clone troopers. It's stormtroopers now, and there's Star Destroyers here. I think it would be kind of fast, but I think it would just make for a great cliffhanger. So maybe it ends in another season like that. But I really want to get
jump a year and
sure. I want to get some perspective from like new stormtroopers outside of just the 3 or 4 that are working with Crosshair. I just think that would be really interesting to kind of explore that.
Yeah. I keep waiting for us to go back to Camino, especially after Hunter has that line of like, I promise you'll never go back to Camino. And that's just like setting us all up for disappointment. But we did talk about that possibly meaning that when they do go back to if and when they do go back to Camino, it being Omega's idea. Like, no, we have to go back for this reason. And I think if that happened, that would be cool.
Sort of facing her fears a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree that they're going back to Camino at some point, but I like the idea that Hunter is kind of conflicted on whether or not he should go after Crosshair because, you know, he keeps saying, I have to protect Omega. I have to protect Omega. And Alini said the line like, if we don't take care of this, they'll have to. If a war's coming, it's going to be theirs as well. So I think Omega will probably be the one to be like, why don't we go get Crosshair? Or like the Hauser and all these other clones got captured and they've been taken back to Camino. Let's go get them. I think Omega will be the driving force for that.
Does Camino turn up? I'm asking the absolute right people here. Like, does Camino turn up in future stuff? It's kind of a bit fuzzy on its future, isn't it? They never really kind of commit to what happens to it. They've sort of kept it in the dark a little bit. That
Dr. Guy in Mandalorian is wearing something with a
he's got the patch on it, hasn't it?
Patch on it. I feel like we're gonna maybe hear about what happened to either Camino or Kaminoans or anyone involving cloning. I hope we learn more about that in Mandalorian season 3.
Yeah, I mean, in Legends, there was a Camino uprising where they cloned their own army and they tried to fight against the Empire. I kind of feel like it makes perfect sense for them to do that again, just to answer why we never see Kaminoans, why we never see clones. I think a Kaminoan has shown up in one story in Lando's Luck, and that's it. Post the Rise or Revenge of the Sith.
Cool.
So
where'd they all go?
I don't have high hopes for Camino surviving this series. Rick Villanueva, thanks for the super chat. Hey gang,
Rick.
I'm questioning Crosshair's motivation for finding his brothers. Is he out to kill them or contact them?
See, Alex, I told you when we were watching, and it's on our reaction. If you're part of our Patreon, you can see our reactions to all the episodes. I was like, I wonder if that's Crosshair having a moment, wanting to like snap out of it, and you didn't think so.
I disagree. I think he's out to kill them, but I think it would be a really fun subversion if it's the other way around. Because like I said, who knows the last time they checked in on his chip?
Yeah, I think there's going to be some sort of confrontation, and I think there's going to be a little bit of Crosshair, like I said, saying it's a bit personal. You guys kind of walked out on me. You're quite happy to walk out on me, so I'm coming to get you. So I think they will try and talk him around, but I don't know. I don't know whether he's gone too far. He's done too many things. He's kind of got to pay or not. But
I think that's a really interesting thing that you've brought up twice now. Just the idea that Crosshair might be under the control of the chip, but like mentally he is still in there. And yeah, he might feel abandoned. Like, I need help and you guys left me. And I'm not in control.
But then he's channeling this programming into that basically, like you said, he's in control, but the abandonment is fueling the anger that the chip and the reaction that he's doing is like, all right, well, I've got to go down this. I've almost got to prove my worth as well, because like I'm the last one here, and these guys are giving me a squad. They're giving me a cool black outfit. I get to order humans around. Like, they're showing me more respect than you guys did at the end.
Yeah.
So now I've got to shoot you.
He got a bunch of crap for being a clone and then whipped everybody into shape. And whatever that episode with the flamethrower person, that was just tough to watch.
He probably feels like, because he's been, the clones were sort of fodder of war for so long and were probably, looked down upon. And he's actually got a chance to be top of the chain here. It's like, hey, things have changed now. The war's over. I get to command humans, boss humans around. I get to go back to these planets where people, in some cases, are ungrateful that we were even here. So, I'm on top. Crosshairs time.
Brett Baumler, thanks for the super chat. I think a theme of this show will become choice. The chips are starting to fail, and the clones have to decide whether to stay loyal or not. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of choices.
Yeah.
They'll choose, but whether they get to go along with it, they might get a choice, but then they might have no choice.
Yeah. You'd think that they would try to make their own choices anytime they could, because they were created to do one thing. And then Order 66 happens, and if they snap out of it, the idea of like just going along with the Empire, it's like, ooh.
It's that weird line, isn't it? That they
sense. I like the idea that I've been saying a big thing of the show, theme of the show is that adapt or die summary of what Saw Gerrera says in the first episode, but like how far do you adapt before you lose yourself? And so that's to place every clone in that position where it's like, okay, the chips aren't messing with us anymore, but do we adapt and join the Empire, or do we adapt and fight the Empire? I think that's an interesting position to put them in.
Like, do they, because it's sort of weird. Like you see those, like the Order 66 stuff, and when it kicks in and they're just like, must kill Jedi, and they're completely, like, they see a Jedi, they kind of go mental. I always kind of wonder, like, behind the scenes, like this time has passed. Like, are they kind of talking like, oh, that was really weird when we shot those Jedis? Do you think that was weird? Like, isn't that, because they consciously just talk like everybody else. They're sort of just normal people. You think that they would be all the time wonder about, like, should we have done that? Doesn't that seem strange to anybody else, that we fought this war for ages and then all of a sudden we were just standing there and we shot them and we just went about our day? And yeah.
Are we the baddies?
Yeah, that whole "are we the baddies" thing. Yeah, and I like that. That was the whole thing with that Hauser was just really interesting, where it just seemed like it felt like he was just kind of going along with it. Like he'd already kind of realized he'd questioned it, realized he'd been messed with, if he actually had been messed with, and gone, all right, well, I'm just going to play this out and see where it takes me, and I'm still in somewhat of a position of power here, so I'll just ride it out. So whether the clones as a whole realize that they've actually been mucked around with, or it's just another day in the office.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely precedent for that. I think that's basically what Hauser was doing today, being like, what are we doing? This isn't what we signed up for. We were supposed to free Ryloth, and now here we are doing the opposite. But we've seen it in the Kanan comic as well, where some time has passed, and Kanan, or Caleb at the time, talks to Gray, who we've also seen in this series, and he's like, why did you do that? Like, why did you shoot Depa Billaba? You know that was wrong. And the clone's like, you're right. Like, if someone just makes them stop and think for a second and just talks to them, they can break out of it.
Yeah, but I guess they're going, hey, we've been shooting people for 4 years, so what's another day of shooting people? The target just slightly changed, but we're already like trained to shoot people. We've been shooting things for ages. So yeah, it's interesting. Ultimately, it's just a story, and there's going to be logical jumps that you have to take for the story to make sense and things, and they can't explain everything. But it was just interesting that throwing a character like Hauser in is just really interesting, because with the Bad Batch, they're just like, oh, well, you guys are weirdos, you're defective, that's why you didn't go along with it. Your brain's grown in a different weird way. But he's just sort of anomaly where, he either went along with it and stopped, or he didn't kick in, or there's something, or he broke it, which is even more fascinating.
Yeah.
Crix Teas, thanks for the next super chat. I've been so impressed by the unspoken moments between characters, the side glances, the barely visible eye movement, that final shot of Crosshair. That's always something. I'm always glad that I'm like doing these reviews and stuff because I have to go in and I basically go frame by frame and I take screenshots that I like to put into the review video. And that's where I really notice just how small some of the animation is, and subtle, and it's so cool. I'm glad that I get a chance to like really slowly scrub through every episode.
When there's a lot of music cues in this show too, when there is no dialogue, and you see all those side glances, and there's like these like little music themes that will play, and it's just really well done.
Or just like little things you notice, or I didn't notice in the first time, but as I'm scrubbing through, I see that once the Bad Batch is reunited for that last scene, Wrecker high fives Omega again, just for like a successful mission, and I love that.
Yeah, it's
He's
just
like, you did it again, kid.
You did it again, you plucky little whippersnapper. It's just a testament to the quality. It's sort of 10, 15 years of Lucasfilm animation now. Of just they've got that machine just sort of well oiled. They took a little, whether they rolled in from Clone Wars to Rebels and then bringing Clone Wars back and now into this. It's just that culmination of the attention to detail and things that they can do now. That also technology gives you as well. That you can when you talk about stuff like assets and rendering and all that kind of thing, and now like, hey, we can stick 500 people on this, we can do this, the facial movements are better, and you can get right up on Crosshair's face. And you think about like those early Clone Wars things where it's kind of like 96 Toy Story or something, right? And this is kind of like, you can see that, you can almost see like his eye twitching because he's so mad, you kind of that's the kind of level of detail you're getting now, which all contributes to the story.
It's crazy the way it's like it's still fully recognizable as Clone Wars from 2008, but so much better and so detailed. It's just cool. Like Lucasfilm has always been just pushing animation or pushing innovation, and animation is just another one of those things.
For TV too, like we're on TV. Like you kind of forget that. That we're watching TV shows, and especially when you think about stuff like Mandalorian and like Loki just came out. It's like, these are TV shows, guys. Like, think about what TV was not that long ago. The stuff that you're watching, like the level of that now, and it's quite amazing that it's the seamlessness. Like I watched Black Widow the other day, and I just kind of went and I enjoyed it, but I went, wow, it's not a million miles away from what I just watched on Disney Plus. Like the lines are blurring, so it does put like the future of Star Wars TV is huge. Like we're not going to get any sort of drop in quality.
Yeah, good point.
All those shows for you guys to review when there's a show a week forever after this.
Well, keep us busy.
Hell yeah.
Bakey, thanks for the super chat. The core worlds knew nothing but peace for so long that the sudden outbreak of war made them want to return to peace no matter the cost.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's true for not just the core worlds, but everyone was probably tired of the fighting.
Yeah.
But yeah, the core worlds are also the snooty, like, what are we doing? Like, why are we involved in all of this?
Yeah. As long as I'm doing okay, then I'm not too concerned about some people out in the middle of nowhere. It's quite interesting that they, everybody would have been over it, and these people come up who were effectively in charge still. They just said, hey, we won the war. We're doing a little bit of rebranding here, and things are going to pretty much be the same for you. You might just have to give up a few little things. We just need to know where you are all the time and where you go and what you do. But hey, no big deal. Hey, if you're not doing anything wrong, nothing to worry about it. So
yeah,
it's
Draconis, thanks for the super chat. Part of me wonders if Omega instead had emulated Wrecker more, if she would have ended up with more of a Tiny Tina personality from Borderlands. Unfortunately, I've never played Borderlands.
Neither have I. Oh no. I'm assuming that's some kid who likes to smash stuff, probably.
I mean, they have a close relationship, a very close friendship or siblingship, brother / sisterhood.
It's like a big brother, little sister kind of thing, I feel like.
So maybe, I mean, she was fully ready to hop in that ship with Hera and just start blasting. So I feel like that's a Wrecker thing to do.
I loved
Absolutely.
that moment between Hera and Omega, because like the last episode ended and we were kind of making predictions for this one, and I was like, I think Hera and Omega are going to hop into a ship together, and Hera's going to get to fly, and that's exactly what happened. And it was funny because she hadn't really trained for takeoffs and landings, and sure enough, when she took off, it was a disaster. And Tech was like, "What is happening?"
It reminded me of playing one of the Battlefield games with my buddy Ashton, who, if you watch Explain It to Me on our other channel, you know who he is. I got into a helicopter with him once, and he didn't know how to fly it, and we died instantly. But that's exactly what I thought of, just spinning wildly.
Mhm.
I said it in the review. Go ahead.
I like how they're just Hera and Omega are mates. Like I just assume they'll be pen pals and stuff now, and they'll just be catching up with each other every now and then. And
The fact that Omega just freely was like, "Yeah, here's our phone number. Bye."
Yeah, here you go.
Yeah.
Just call anytime. We might be on the run, whatever. Yeah, just call if you've got anything. If you're in trouble, if you just want to talk about boys or whatever you want to do, like no big deal.
But yeah, I got very serious Indiana Jones fly yes, land no vibes from that. Just like, once I'm in the air, I'm fine, but everything else is a problem.
Yeah. Guiguio, thanks for the super chat. Wild idea. The Empire will try to salvage the rebelling clones with a personality reprogramming. Enter Ballast instead of Hauser. Ooh.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Oh no. Oh, that would be terrible. Like if we see him again and everyone's like, "Oh, it's our handsome friend."
And he's
it's
reprogrammed.
Terrible.
His
mind
hair's
gets
all like
wiped.
messed up.
Oh
His
yeah.
makeup smudged. Like his yeah. Oh look, they're definitely going to have a crack at trying to salvage the operation because they just simply don't have the numbers to replace him at the moment. So, like I said, even if there is like a kill switch, they can't sort of do it all in one hit to maintain control. But yeah, I don't know. They're going to have a. Yeah, I have a feeling Hauser might be strapped to the table next time we see him if we're not careful.
I'll say the argument I have against that, because I really don't want to see him like that, is that I don't know why the Empire or even he would give himself a new nickname. Like, Hauser is no more. I'm Ballast now. Like, the whole idea behind the Empire is that they call their stormtroopers and their clone troopers by their identification numbers.
Mhm.
Like, they're supposed to be impersonal. So I'll say that so that I can sleep tonight.
Well,
Whatever
there's
works.
so many of them that they might not care. They might just be. I mean, that was why I was sort of surprised they kept him alive, because it might be like, well, we've got so many of them, we don't really care if one goes non-compliance. We've got a whole bunch of other ones, but I suppose it's more the fact that they've got to find out why he's non-compliant, what the deal is, and can it happen again.
Yeah, I agree with that. Jane Dalton, thank you for the super chat and question. Do y'all think Palpatine had the Separatists attack certain neutral planets just so he could have a foothold in them after the war, especially worlds like Ryloth with large metal mines? Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all. I mean, but then again, Palpatine's in a position where it's like no matter who wins, he's in control. So
Yeah.
he was probably playing both sides.
Yeah, you could be personally trying to settle a few scores of ones who gave him trouble during the thing and saying, all right, well, I can just... But like you said, that he kind of hit a bunch of different planets, whether they're Republic or neutral or separatist, of just, I think more just to sort of show people of like, well, it doesn't matter, you're all Empire now. Doesn't matter what you were before. You're under control, whether you're this one, this one, doesn't matter. They're doing it from a point of benevolence of like, well, it doesn't matter if you stood up to us. We're all your friends now. We'll take care of you. Come in, join the fold, join the big group hug, and you'll be kept safe. So that's the kind of the banner that they're going in under. But I think it's consciously done of like, we'll just do a bit of everyone so it doesn't feel like, because you're not starting insurgents, because they kind of look after all the pre-Republic ones. All the separatist planets are like, well, we got nothing again. So let's just fight them again. So it's like, hey, no, we're going to bring our peace to everybody, and you're all just living under one lovely, warm banner of the Empire.
But knowing that the Death Star was in development from Attack of the Clones. And so he would know that he needed Dunium and a lot of it. That does make sense for him to be like, I can't remember if we saw him do any of this in the Ryloth arc of the Clone Wars or not. I think it was just the Jedi being like, we got to help the Twi'leks. But it makes sense that he would maybe be okay with that. Like, yeah, let's send some clones there and get them really established and make sure that Ryloth is protected so that when I flip the switch, Ryloth is protected and we have the Dunium we need.
Yeah. And the Death Star was always like a contingency plan, wasn't it? To basically like once we, what is it? It's New Hope. Like once we dissolve the Republic in the Senate completely, that basically that's how we rule, is just by having this floating gun everywhere. You know, that's the long term. But at the moment, we'll just try and keep the illusion that you're all still sort of in the same system. Everything's cool, with a few sort of limits on freedoms, and then eventually we'll just park the big Death Star above your house and tell you to tell you to play nice.
Yeah. Draconis, thanks for another super chat. What if with Hauser, he never received Order 66 because there were no Jedi on Ryloth at the time, but any new clone that arrived had it active already?
Maybe. Does the Jedi, is that the thing that triggers it? Like, is it Order 66 just to kill Jedis, or has it got a lot of like, hey, you've just got to do everything that we say from now on?
That's
like, is killing Jedis just like the first line? Like, hey, kill some Jedis, but also you kind of lost a lot of your free will now. Your compliance has just gone up through the roof in general.
Yeah. I mean, we don't know enough about Order 66 to say no, but I think that probably flipping that switch for all the clones means like now you're all under our control and that's it. Regardless of whether or not there's a Jedi in the area.
It goes kill Jedi, good soldiers follow orders, ? Profit.
Yeah. Collect underpants and
I will like, so Cut's chip didn't activate, but he never heard the comms or anything. So it's, I don't know. We just don't know enough about Order 66 and exactly how the chips work to say either way. So like your guess is as good as ours. That if there's no Jedi around, maybe that is the impetus to start everything.
Interesting. Yeah.
Well, that might be the difference between the Jedi, like the clones that kill Jedi. Like, as I asked before about, like, you know, they're all talking about how they kill Jedis and why aren't they all talking about it? But, you know, if there's hundreds of thousands of clone troopers and there's arguably 1,000 or so Jedis, that only means, you know, 1 in 20 or 100 actually were even near a Jedi where it kicked in. So they could be going, oh, yeah, we killed Jedis. And like, oh, really? I didn't see that. We're just getting on with our jobs. Like, there'd only be a small number of them that were involved actually killing Jedis. The rest are just like, well, we thought the war was over. Now we're just peacekeepers. Life just goes on. So that is probably an easier way to sort of get them to be compliant, because not all of them happen to be there knocking Jedis over.
Yeah. I think I agree. And Adam Maresh makes a good point that in the Vader comic, they reactivate Order 66 and some clone purge troopers just by saying, execute Order 66, and a bit of a mind trick as well. But I think that makes sense. I think that anyone with a chip that was tuned into the comms would probably be under its control.
Yeah.
Let's see. Charlie, we covered the Crosshair potentially rejoining the crew. But thank you for your super chat. And Madison Badger, thank you for your super chat. Chopper took down some stormtroopers and a droid. Go Chop. Love to see astromech hero moments. I don't know if I'd call Chopper I mean, he's a hero, but he's also just like the brutal killer we know him to be. When we were watching, Molly was like, it's Chopper's first kill.
he's like, whatever it takes, kind of a deal. Yeah.
I just like how I just like in Star Wars that no one gives a crap about droids, that they can just walk around, like pretty much walk around with impunity and just do stuff without anybody really knowing they're just such the lower class. I mean, I know eventually those troopers were like, hey, you're not the droid that belongs here, but for the most part they can just sort of like slide, like even in the Last Jedi, you know, where they sneak BB-8. They're on the Star Destroyer or whatever it is, and it's only that other droid that calls it out because he notices that it's not the right droid. Like everybody else doesn't even care. Like they just walk around. So
a moving
it's just like
box,
your toaster,
obviously.
Yeah, it's a trash can turned upside down, and they're like, it's fine.
Nothing suspicious
into
about
a
that.
trooper, and he's like, all right. Well.
Stupid droid.
Aimless Dreamer coming in with another super chat. Do you think the inhibitor chips as a concept played a part in how the First Order brainwashed stormtroopers, a la Red Room?
Well, there's definitely, like we're talking about, potentially Hauser might get dragged back to Camino, so they mess with this chip. It reminded me of the brain scrape from Star Wars Resistance, which is basically reconditioning for any First Order stormtroopers that show weird signs of non-compliance. Yeah, terrible term.
Way to say it. Ugh.
But that's what they say.
I always felt like that was a thread that the sequel trilogy left hanging that I would have really liked to see resolve, was the idea of stolen children, of sort of like missing children. And I always sort of thought that maybe the MacGuffin of the Rise of Skywalker might have been like the list of the families of all the First Order troopers, of like literally like if you get all these troopers, their family information, and they remind them of where they came from, they might be like, I don't want to fight for this stupid First Order anymore, and walk away. And saying that help Finn, because he got taken and all that kind of stuff as well. Like, whatever, I like those movies, but it's just interesting that, like, if that's the sort of techniques that they use, like, do all those First Order kids have chips in their heads, or do they? What was Hux doing? I haven't read those books. You guys probably do. They get into? I know his
no chips
parents
as
were
far
big
as
on
we
it
know.
too. No, just very persuasive.
But I fully agree. I wanted a Stormtrooper rebellion so bad, and it's like we got a quarter of the way there.
4 of them. Yeah.
Yeah, we got Company 7. What was left of Company 77 and Finn. But yeah, I wanted it on a bigger scale.
Yeah.
That's right. Episode 10, guys. Don't worry. It's coming.
Iceberg 11327, thanks for the super chat. Really loved this episode. Only thing I would say is I feel like it would have a perfect time to check up on Echo, because they were on Ryloth, a planet that suffered under Wat Tambor just like he did. Yeah, I'm still waiting for some Echo stuff. Like, I feel like and Tech, Hunter and Wrecker and Crosshair, I feel like we keep checking in on them, but Tech and Echo could use some attention.
Tech feels like just the he's trying to be the voice of reason and like the smarty pants one. I don't know that we're gonna get anything deeper from him. It'd be nice if we did, but
I hope so. But they did do a thing where when Harris said that my father is Cham Syndulla, like he quickly looked down at his data pad, and I was like, he's just quickly Googling things.
Googling everything, yeah. He's just the guy on the internet with the best Wi-Fi. Yeah. He's just checking his Apple Watch all the time, just trying to. He has to be the smartest guy in the room, even if he isn't.
And I recognize that because it's me.
The eyepieces on his helmet are really just those Google glasses.
Oh.
He's
as a guy
constantly
who wears glasses, I'm just like, they're just making him look like the biggest dork in the thing by putting big glasses on him. They're not goggles. They're just the thickest glasses that they can stick on him.
Yeah. Another super chat from Rick Villanueva. Thanks, Rick. Is Avi Singh secretly Bob Hudsall?
Bob Hudsall is still one of my favorite Star Wars names because it's so not Star Wars.
Bob.
So Bob is a background character. Bob is a background character from A New Hope, one of like the rebel generals just kind of standing around, and he's got like the same thing that the senator from Raxus Prime has. I just assume it's two people with awesome mustaches.
Is it just the 70s late England mustache that he just happens to have in the background, sort of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm assuming they're different characters, but if they go that route, sure.
Why not?
Yeah, why not?
True.
Dr. Holocron, thanks for the question. Do we think we'll see Hauser take part in the inevitable uprising on Camino? If that happens, I hope so. I assume so.
Yeah. I'm wondering, like, if Hauser does get taken to Camino, does Hunter and the rest of the Bad Batch, do they care enough to, like, go back there just for him? There's got to be more to bring them back there.
Well, there's
Well, like you
him
said,
and all those other clones.
Yeah.
Yeah, if Omega wants to go back, maybe
That's
they
true.
do
She
go
can
back at
just
the same time. She could just
make them do
convince them to
anything
come
now.
back. I mean, she
Yeah.
could be the one where they get word that he is going to basically try and take over the facility and free them or whatever, and they might be like, well, it's not our problem. We've got to get away. They've turned on us, and she'd be like, no, well, we've got to get in there and fight our corner. And you're saying that she would be the one who says she wants to go back, so that could be the impetus for it. Potentially, but yeah, look, it's certainly set up that it's because you basically need a character that we're familiar with to be there that's not the Bad Batch, so it does work quite well. It's like, here's someone that obviously we all like now and has a good enough reason to start something, and he can sort of be there, and then they can come over and it can all kick off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Brett Baumler with another super chat. I think we get one more standalone episode, and then the last 3 will be a big arc. Maybe a clone prison break with Rex and the Bad Batch, save Hauser, etc.
That sounds cool.
I like that. I
Rex
like
does
a
come
prison
back.
break arc. Yeah.
Yeah. A big finale, and possibly a cliffhanger leading us into season 2.
I think that makes sense structurally. Either that or like two-parters. But I definitely think the last episode will be tied to 1 or 2 more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but
this is
maybe it'll be like
effectively a 2-parter.
Yeah, and I really like that the Bad Batch feels like a combination of Rebels and the Clone Wars, where it's like, okay, we're sticking very tightly with this one family, but we're still doing arcs occasionally. We did a Braca arc, we've done the Ryloth arc. That I appreciate that they're kind of branching out into arcs more than Rebels did for the most part.
Yeah,
bring them all back. Bring it, that, sort of like the end of Mandalorian, where they all came at the end, and sort of bring all their friends along the way, and all get cracking at it.
Nolan Chase, thanks for the super chat. I think a clone uprising could cause the clones to be phased out. Yeah, I really think that's going to play a part in it. It just makes sense.
Yeah,
It's
I mean, like you said
tragic,
earlier,
but it makes sense.
Like you said, there's a reason why we don't see clones anymore going forward, and I don't know. It's going to be something big and sad, probably.
Do you think we could get a surprise? It's all about the surprises and Palpatine, planning all these things. And like, is it possible that there are stormtroopers being trained somewhere right now that we don't know about, and they just turn up? Like, the clones are fighting, and all of a sudden there's thousands of stormtroopers. There's like in the stormtrooper, the classic, TK outfits, and like, well, we don't need you guys. These guys are taking over. You've been made obsolete. That's the pull. Like, yeah, we've actually, while we've got you guys sort of standing around keeping the peace, we've actually been secretly training all these dudes over to the side somewhere.
Yeah, I kind of think that's what the episode War Mantle will be about, especially with what Hauser just did, to be like, all right, that's the last straw. Clones are done. Stormtroopers are in.
Yep, you guys are out. Push you into the ocean, or whatever it is.
Death Troopers are the new thing.
I keep thinking of horrible things of happening to clones. I've got to stop that.
Star Wars 345 paper, thanks so much for the super chat. The show really loves shooting people and having them survive. Hunter, Bane, Wrecker, Ta brings plot armor to a whole new level. Not that I mind.
That's definitely, you can see my eyes roll and my arms go up when they're like, yeah, Orn-Free Ta's condition continues to improve. I was like, I knew it. I knew I did that video and it'd be for nothing. That they'd make it clear. Should have just
lots
been
of stunning
patient.
in this series too. They do a lot more stunning than they've done probably in anything. I love the stun. Like, I just love the look and the sound and stuff of it. But lots of stunning as well. But yeah,
when the Bad Batch goes to save Avi Singh, like, that's after they sat and talked to Rex, and after they learned a little bit more about the chips, then that was when we started seeing them stunning all of the other clone troopers instead of just straight up killing people.
Yeah. But yeah, Orn Free Ta lives. I still think that he was written to die, and then the story group probably popped in and was like, hey, maybe don't. Like, maybe just attempt it a couple times, make it clear he's not dead.
There's
That
this
guy's
joke
gonna
over
end
here that happens, and
Yeah.
And
He's going to eat
researching-
himself to death anyway, rather than get shot.
in researching why he had 4 Leku, because I mean that question comes up all the time. The front Leku are just fatty deposits, so they hit him. They hit him in like this Leku here, and it wasn't a vital spot, but it still knocked him out, I guess.
sure.
It's just full of cream cheese or custard or with cream or something.
Adam Maresh, thanks for the super chat and question. Just says, well, Alex, where's Dryden Voss? Look, he's coming. Dryden Voss is going to be in this show. I stand by it, and I'll stand by that until it's over. If he never appears, I'm going to be like, he was in a deleted scene somewhere.
You're going to die on that hill?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I must have missed you when you threw down on that one, mate. Did he was he in Clone Wars for like 2 seconds or something? Wasn't he? Wasn't
And that's my rationalization, is that they would not have made that character model for 2 seconds. He's gonna be in this show. He's gonna be. So maybe not this season, but he's coming.
I would love it if like the last arc involved him somehow. But I don't know. It feels a little late in the game to introduce him in Crimson Dawn, but maybe not.
I will cancel the channel if Dryden Voss doesn't show up.
Whoa.
I've been wrong about so many things before. What's another one on the on the pile?
Important thing is you put yourself out there, mate.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah. Stuart J, thank you so much for this super chat. Chopper straight up murdered that droid just for being in his way. When they cut back to it, it was smoking and lifeless.
But that was an Imperial droid. I believe it was the same model as we saw in Cut and Run. The one that was like blaring an alarm when it ran into Hunter and Wrecker and Omega. So it's okay.
Yeah. Bad
plus,
droid. It's done bad things.
We see, when R2 gets zapped with the ion blaster in A New Hope, he falls over. He's not smoking, but he falls over as if to be totally lifeless. But maybe he was just messed up and they fixed him.
I mean, I said the same thing about AZ, the droid that got stunned in the first episode, and it came back.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Archer gets shot in the head by a TIE fighter. Let's not forget that at the end of New Hope.
Right.
They managed to get him back, and he was on fire and all sorts of stuff. They're resilient. It's like when your Xbox blows up, you can always take it back and get it replaced and stuff. It's okay.
Yeah, he's fine.
He'll be fine. But he was a bad droid, that Empire droid. Don't feel sorry for him. He didn't pay his parking fines. He used to like run into little kids and run over bugs and stuff. So he got what was coming.
He'll come back a changed droid.
Yeah, that's right.
So. Kyle Ruiz, thanks for the super chat. Why does it seem like Republic generals and commanders are so okay with the Empire without questioning intentions of the Empire? Rampart or Yularen, for example. It would be cool to see.
That's just what the baddies do.
Well, Yularen is someone who it would be nice to see right now and how they're handling stuff like this. He was a good dude. He's always shown to be a good dude. So what's he thinking right now?
I think as somebody who's worked in government organizations before, a lot of the time you can just be moved to a department that has no influence if you start asking the wrong questions, or you're a troublemaker or whatever like that. You just end up in the mail room, or you just get put in the department that doesn't really do much. So it could just be a subtle demotion, or you get put in some outpost where you got no real influence and things, and the bad eggs get sort of brought to the top.
There is so Rampart, I think, is just a bad dude. We don't know what he was like during the Clone Wars. He could have been crap. Yularen was an admiral in the Clone Wars. When we next see him, he's a colonel. Now we know that, or that's always been explained away because he switched departments. He went from the Navy to the ISB, but maybe he got demoted. Maybe he's not handling this very well. I don't know.
Colonel of the mail room.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe they'll never promote him as much as the other dudes because of like who he was before the Empire.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Rampart was just a bad kid. He probably just had to break windows and do stuff like that, and just had a if they just said, hey, do you want to rise the ranks, and he said, yeah, you willing to do this, and he's like, yeah, and I'm like, great, we'll get out there and do it, and if you keep doing it, then you'll you'll be looked after.
Yeah, the Empire promotes cruelty.
Mm-hmm. Rampart is the neighbor kid from Toy Story.
Yeah, he's Sid from Toy Story.
Yeah.
And that droid, that bad droid, was his droid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Miranda here, thanks for the super chat. Just arrived late, so maybe you already discussed this. It really seems to me like Rampart is starting to form the idea of forming Task Force 99.
I could see that. That's a Scar Squadron, Molly, who we were talking about earlier.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like taking the idea of the Bad Batch and like making stormtroopers in the same idea.
Yeah, yeah.
He seems quite fascinated with the Bad Batch, doesn't he?
I'm not expecting Scar Squadron to pop up in this show, but I could see that kind of being their origin story of just, we fought these clones and they were highly specialized, and we'll just make a team just like them.
Mm-hmm. It seems like something the Empire would do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's
no
not throw
original
this
ideas.
idea away.
Not an original idea in their
lost a
head.
Death Star? What are we not going to build a second? And then a bunch of Star Destroyers that do the same thing? No, we're the Empire. We're going to repeat this over and over.
Nothing but time and money.
Dragonus Prime, thanks for the super chat. It's your boy. I'm super late, but can we just discuss Crosshair's head? It looks so painful, but I imagine his programming prevents him from reacting. I do like his new model. I mean, I'm glad that they updated his model to show the damage that he underwent.
Yeah.
He
already had really short hair, but now he's like, he had to shave it all off, and he's got this like big scar. But I don't know, maybe it makes him look even more scary to like the soldiers. He probably doesn't mind.
He's just leaning into it. Yeah, that's probably why he really doesn't like Hauser, because Hauser's so handsome, and they both come from the same cloning, and somehow he's the sort of hideous one, and Hauser's the handsome one. So
that's a good point.
Very surprising he didn't shoot him in the face.
I did. Brett pointed out that Rampart had a line about how if only the Bad Batch were fighting for us instead. So yeah, I missed that or forgot about it. It's a good clue.
Yeah. Madison Badger, thanks for the super chat. Does the Batch's Gonk have a name? It's Gonky, I think.
Which is, I'm going to guess Wrecker named that.
Yeah. It seems like a Wrecker name.
Gonky. Yeah. It's not short for Gonkled or something like that, or...
Well, Tech probably would have just called it like by its serial number. Echo probably didn't care. Hunter seems like the kind of guy to throw it to Wrecker and be like, what do you want to name it, buddy?
Gonkington the Third.
Gonkington. He's like Sir Gonkington. Call me Gonky. Mr. Gonkle was my father. Was he? Are they power droids? Aren't they Gonk? Are they just like walking batteries? Yeah.
Yeah.
But like Gonky apparently can't hold a full charge, so that's why he's defective with the rest of the defective clones.
He's like my iPhone 4 kind of thing.
Who charges Gonky? Like, how do Gonk droids get power? They're walking around powering ships and stuff, but
plug it in.
Chicken and egg kind of thing.
Yeah. Is there like, do you plug Gonky into the Havoc Marauder?
Another Gonk.
And then the Havoc Marauder into Gonky, and it's just a cycle of continuing power? Like, how does that work?
It's like a car battery.
Do they have renewable energy? Is there renewable energy in Star Wars, or are they still on burning fossil fuels in Star Wars?
I mean, they have fuel of some kind.
Yeah.
But I like the idea that that's why Gonk droids are always walking around. They're
because he's
generating power.
charging. Yeah, he's just
Uh-huh.
I'm just doing the miles.
We
I
figured
actually
it
think
out.
that makes
We
sense.
figured it out. Put it
I
in
like that.
Wikipedia. Quick.
I'm gonna make a video.
Yes.
How Gontroys work.
Million
the
views
Golden
right
Burger.
there.
The Golden Burger. Thanks so much for the super chat. Very generous super chat. Do you think we'll see Caleb again with Hera showing up? Do you think it could be laying a foundation for Rebels?
Oh, kid meet cute. Like little teenage romance. And then
I
they
don't
don't
think
realize that they've
so.
met.
Oh yeah,
This
that would
came
have to
up-
be how it went.
Yeah, this came up, I think, after last week's episode, like if we would see Kanan, but like it's pretty clear that Kanan and Hera meet for the first time. Was it
10
In a-
years.
10
Later.
years from now? Yeah. I don't know that they would have met as children.
Yeah, I mean, like Josh said, it could be something where they meet and they don't know who they are. Maybe he's like, "Hi, I'm Caleb," and I assume
Yeah.
she knows. She knows his real name. Like,
But she's got that different accent at the time too. He might not click until later
Yeah.
on. She's got the Gal
mean-
Gadot accent going.
it does seem like a small part for him. Like I'm always talking about the character models, and he was in one episode and one shot of the Clone Wars, but I don't know. I don't think he should be interacting with a whole lot of clones based on his reaction to seeing clones in Star Wars Rebels. So I'm not expecting to see him pop back up, but I do think they're laying a foundation for Rebels. I think they're just kind of bridging that gap.
Mhm.
I just want to make cute. I just want them sharing, like splitting a milkshake or something together, like a couple of 12-year-olds, just a cute little, go out to a little movie or something and then separated. And then all of a sudden, 10 years later, pick up where they left off.
Yeah, I mean, you could retcon it to just they didn't know who they were when they met in A New Dawn, and then later they figured it out.
Sure.
Yeah.
So
Brett Baumler sent in another super chat. Thank you, Brett. In Rebels,
Yeah,
Kanan
Brett.
is aware of the chips and mentions them when he meets Rex. I think this leaves the door open for him to appear again and learn about them while still not trusting clones. So that's what another way Kanan could pop back up.
maybe
It'll be funny if it is actually a common knowledge kind of thing that just sort of, like by the time you get to Rebels and A New Hope, everyone just knows the Empire's bad. Everyone kind of just, for the most part, I mean, if you're in the rebellion, you're just like, well, they, screwed us over, they started a war, they did all these things and, manipulated and killed the Jedi and everything. So whether it's a common knowledge that like, hey, we had all these clones, but the Empire manipulated them to kill Jedi, that's why there's no Jedi. It could just be something that people know. You just don't see any clones anymore, so it doesn't really matter. It's just sort of like a story about things that old war stories, basically.
Yeah. I'm still not going to expect it, but like I can see him learning about the chips off screen somewhere. But I wouldn't put it past Dave Filoni to keep bringing his faves back.
Oh yeah, he's restrained himself. No Ahsoka so far, which has surprised me.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people thought she would show up with Rex, but who knows where she's at.
Vic, thanks for the super chat. Hey guys, I don't know if this has been discussed, but I love seeing the transition from the Republic to the Empire in leadership and overall attitude. When do you think we'll see the first Imperial vehicles or ships? My fingers are crossed for the season finale.
Yeah, I want to
Yeah,
see some TIE fighters for the very first time. I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, I think that battle, clones uprise, and then all of a sudden a classic Star Destroyer is going to turn up full of classic stormtroopers, and surround the planet or do something. I think that's going to be the big the Empire is really here now. we've been planning for this. That we've just been, we've seen that they can make Star Destroyers in secret pretty easily. So it's all just rolling off the production line somewhere. They could be under.
True.
They could be under Camino for all we know. They could come out of the ground, out through the water, all of a sudden.
I mean, I kind of like that. That sounds cool. But yeah, agreed. I hope it's soon. If it's not, whatever. They'll do it later. But I kind of hope it's just feels like a season finale thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hans Ing Eidhammer, thanks so much for the super chat. How much time do you think has passed since Order 66? So we touched on this a little bit. We guessed around 6 months, but I don't know.
Yeah,
What do you think, Alex?
that seems fine. Sure.
That was just my uneducated guess. I'll leave it to the experts. So that felt about that, didn't it?
Yeah, I'm going to say less than a year, but like there have been some points where I'm like, yeah, we could have done a time jump. Like the Braca arc was obviously one episode after another, but there were some, and even the Braca arc had a moment where it's like Rex shows up and he's like, let me find a place to get your chips out and I'll be in touch. And then who knows how much time had passed. It's like in the Fellowship of the Ring, Gandalf's like, let me figure out the deal with this ring. I'll be right back. 17 years go by and we don't even know it. So it could be something like that.
That's nuts.
That is
Lord of the
nuts,
Rings
isn't
is
it?
so
And then,
crazy.
And then he doesn't even leave for like 4 more years after that. He just sits around for a while. He goes, I better do something about that ring. Yeah, I've read that book.
Get rid of this. Madison Badger, thanks for the question. Speaking of setting up rebels, could we see Callus? Do we know when Zeb's planet gets attacked by the Empire? I don't think we know the timeline on that. I don't know how old Callus is, but I feel like he's a little too young to be popping up now.
Same age as Hera. Like I kind of like he's sort of.
That's what I kind of figured. So he'd be a really young blonde genocidal maniac if he if he popped up now.
Plus,
another bad kid.
Yeah, I really like his story from beginning to end in Rebels. I don't know that I would want them to go back and show him from any earlier than that.
But is that sort of, once you sort of open the door or open Pandora's box of like Hera and start talking about her backstory, it does open a whole bunch of questions like, oh, we're going to see this backstory and this backstory and this backstory.
Yep.
Yes, no, maybe. I don't know. We've got 20 years of story to fill, but whether they do it or not now, we'll just have to wait and see, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that is it for super chats, and we have got to this is our longest stream so far, so thank you everyone for all your questions and super chats. We need to start wrapping it up, so let's throw it to Josh. And where can people find you online and follow you? And I'm going to keep an eye out for one more just question from the chat while you do that.
Okay, great. Well, I do a podcast called Star Wars Spelt Out, which is originally was a parody of Star Wars Explained, because the idea was that you guys know what you're talking about, and I don't know what I'm talking about. No one ever got that joke, and you guys were quite gracious to just let it ride. But I've had Molly on as a guest. It's basically an interview show. We have a different guest on most weeks. Just talk general chit-chat, Star Wars, have fun. Don't take it too seriously. Excuse me. We're on about weekly to fortnightly episodes at the moment, given working from home and all that kind of stuff like that. And I also do a podcast about Peppa Pig, really, with my friend Matt, because we're both dads, where we review every episode of Peppa Pig, which is way more popular than my Star Wars podcast, because there's only one Peppa Pig podcast in the whole world, and I've got it, as opposed to the millions of Star Wars ones. So we're about 100. Yeah, for some reason, nobody else has decided they want to do a Peppa Pig podcast. I don't know why. But so we're about 120 episodes into that. We're reviewing Peppa Pig. So they're just little 15-minute episodes. We just have a bit of fun with it, and it's good. And then you can just follow Star Wars Spelt is the Twitter, or StarWarsSpeltOut.com. I've got some T-shirts. I'm wearing a batch on. If you remember the show, if anyone remembers the show MASH, if anyone's old enough to remember. And then you can just follow me at Chapman Josh if you just want to see me tweet about things that aren't always Star Wars, which is basically just cricket and football and stuff, Australian topics. So you're welcome to do that too. So thank you so much for having me, guys. It's been awesome. Great just catching up, and hopefully we'll be able to get out of the country and come to Celebration and hang out properly again. That's the dream. I'm fully vaccinated now, so we're hoping that the border will be open for us by May. Since they've moved it back and made it even less time that we have to get there now than we had before. So we'll just see how we go.
Yeah,
I hope so too. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay, I've got I found 2 questions I like real quick. We'll just go Harry Johnson, do we think we'll see Cody? Josh, go.
Yes, why not? In the
Molly.
big fight at the end.
I'm gonna say no.
I'm going to say no in season 2, but yes in the series. Or no in season 1, but maybe in season 2. I don't think there's enough time for him to have a good enough arc now, but he should show up.
I think he's going to show up in the Kenobi series. I think they might be
that.
saving him for that.
Sure. All right, that's fair.
Cool.
Okay, and this is how we'll end. I love this question. Tirabebe, who has the better hair, Hauser or Cobb Vanth?
Uh-oh.
I'm sticking with
Vance
Cobb Vanth.
does, but it's thanks to Hauser's product line.
Yeah.
Yeah. Vanth has more height. He's got more volume by just a little bit, so it's a little more impressive for people who wear helmets.
Hauser walked so Vanth could run.
Yes.
Well, thank you all so much for hanging out and chatting about this episode with us. It was a great stream. We will be back on Wednesday with another Lego stream, and then we'll be back next Friday to talk about the Bad Batch episode 13. We're in the home stretch, the last quarter of the season. But thank you all again. May the Force be with you. We'll see you next time.